Hey y'all, welcome back to Key is King. Today we are getting into the latest and the greatest. Episode 7 of Real Housewives of Salt Lake City was a chef's kiss. These women, I'm convinced, just don't know how to not deliver. Hopefully I don't have a cat fur on me. But another great episode, and I can't wait to get into the details because there was so much that happened. So without further ado, let's get into the show. Okay. We open the episode on the other side of the cliffhanger that we were left on, which is the husbands pushing, shoving, and cursing at each other. Now, it looked like they were going to fight, but like I said in my last video, they were not about to bust a Utah grape in a fruit fight. There was no fight. There was no real skirmish, scuffle, however you want to call it. They're just screaming, pushing, and the wives are like shook. I think it was Whitney that pointed out Lisa's sweating through her many layers of makeup. Everyone was stressed. And that was stressed. Yes, stressed. So they're all fucking fighting. And the way that everyone, not everyone I should say, the way that Angie, whose party we're at, by the way, do not forget, she's trying to break up this fight by Mary giving a blessing. Mind you, I think she even said it, this should have happened hours ago. I don't know if it's typical in the Utah traditions or cultures, but they're blessing into the evening, well into the evening, after libations and things have been shared. So Angie is trying to break up this fight by saying, Mary's going to give a blessing, Mary's going to give a blessing, everyone, this is my house. She's like, pull hair outside, not in my home. You know, Electra's there, which is her daughter. And Angie's very serious about her daughter, as she should be. So they're fighting, they're doing all that shit. Mary decides, okay, now's the time. So Mary gets everybody in line for a blessing, and she's like, hold hands with someone you love. And she stops production on the blessing to make Lisa go hold Whitney's hand. And she was like, no, do it. And Lisa's like, no, I'm good. And she's like, no, it's important. And so Lisa and Whitney are fighting before, during, and after this blessing. Like, literally throughout the entire thing, these women are still arguing about who's a liar, who's not a liar, who hit up the blog, who didn't hit up the blog. It was madness. So they're just fighting throughout. The Lord, they were like, okay, Lord, sorry, put that one on pause. We're gonna, like, we have something to talk about. Oh, it was such a, and this was just the opening couple of minutes. Do you understand? This is not a drill. The way they fight, the way they bicker is so funny and entertaining. Obviously, I would not be here if I didn't think so. But I got a real chuckle out of them just fighting through the blessing. I don't think the blessing hit them. I think it might have jumped over them. And so, I really can't even, forgive me for not having a complete timeline here, but somewhere in this whole thing, John Barlow, I think, just really wants to fight. Like, we'll talk about it later, but they were trying to make Justin kind of the aggressor, but John Barlow comes over as Justin, is trying to calmly talk to Lisa while Whitney is there, and he just comes over and shoves Justin out of the way, which, mind you, he probably is just on high alert, which later we'll get into as well, but I thought in the situation and watching this first scene that John Barlow was looking for a fight. Mr. Robot, Mr. Pussy Whipped was real piped up. The pussy piped up. Pussy pipeline. So that was just very funny, but Lisa claims she's done. She's like, oh, I've been done before. This, that, and the third. We've been through some stuff. She's like, I am done. And so we'll see if she means that. Because you know Housewives, revolving door of shit. But that was the opening scene. There was so much happening there. Oh, and I stand corrected in my last video because I said Lisa had called her lawyer and was on the phone. It was her security team and the man in her security. She wanted the FBI, the police in different states and counties called. So, just a little side note, I stand corrected. Lisa called her security team right away upon these accusations. So we move on, and the next scene is obviously the next morning, right? And so we start with Lisa and John, who's coming in with some food. Lisa claims she had a very low-key day because of the prior day's events. And so Lisa's coming in and she's like, oh, hi, like Mr. Boxer. And John's like, oh, Mr. Boxer, do you mean like my mouthy wife? When I tell you Lisa was gagged, she was gagged and gooped. And when you're gooped and gagged, you know it's real. So Lisa was gooped that she got called mouthy, and she was like, oh, now I'm mouthy, and he was like, now? he's like, baby, you been baby gorgeous, you are baby mouthy. So she was gooped that her man was like out here boxing and throwing shade. And so they're talking about the night. They're really just like, they can't believe it. Lisa is just so done. She's shocked. She thinks Justin is aggressive. She keeps saying that Justin is aggressive and he can't believe, or she can't believe, that he conducted himself that way, and John would have just been like, whatever, and like dismissed Whitney and like not said anything. Which, actually, I could see that. I could see that. So they were just shook. They cut over to, of course, Whitney and Justin is not only still pissed off, he is emptying out every Vita tequila related business item in their house. Which, if you haven't caught on by now, Lisa runs a few different liquor companies, because she's Mormon 2.0. Please don't forget. And so he's pouring out full bottles of vodka, or tequila, excuse me. Like unopened, cracking the seal. And Whitney shook. I don't know if she's more shook by the behavior or by the fact that she's watching alcohol go down the drain. But she looks terrified in this moment. And it's kind of funny because apparently, according to them, Whitney's never seen her husband act like that. And he's never really done that in their whole 18, however many years together. So, very telling. Like the read between the lines type of shit in these situations is what I kind of live for, because Whitney looked shook as fuck. Like, she was really looking at him like, what is going on with you? And not for nothing, people are accusing John Barlow of the same thing later in the episode, which I'm sure we'll touch at some point. And if we don't, I said it now. So that was just, I love that they're just blaming each other. Classic Housewives. Each party feels like the other is just completely at fault. And Lisa is just dragging Whitney. She's talking about her jewelry line and how she was hoping that this show would like increase her sales, and that won't happen in her confessional. She also said that Whitney will have to beg her to even look at her again. So, you know Lisa don't play, and she don't play when she thinks she's been offended. So, God bless Whitney on her healing journey, because she's really done pissed Lisa off. She done did it. We then move on to Heather and Britt, which are easily, shocker here, my two least favorite people in this episode. Transitioning to Heather and Britt is just the saddest moment for me. Mind you, we didn't get any Mary in this episode, and there was somebody else that wasn't in this episode, like, at all. And they are the fun of the show. Cricket, cricket, cricket. I can't think of who it is, and I'm not even going to spend time trying to pretend. So, Britt is going to visit Heather at her job. And they're joking about how the boss is so nice to let her have a break. Britt is trying to recap. They're recapping about the night. Britt thinks she's recapping about Jared, and Heather thinks she's recapping about the fight, because obviously, why wouldn't you be talking about the fight? But Britt is in her little dick blinder phase, and she just can't see nothing else. So Heather's like, okay, yeah, that was interesting. Heather's definitely still weird and salty that she like knew and made out with Brittany's date. But Heather's just like, so you're looking kind of crazy, like, about this, because she told her she looked like a war veteran's wife or something at the party, which she did, which, that was so funny, because, like, you know, like I say all the time, you gotta give people credit where credit's due. You gotta let people know when they do a little something, something. And so Heather, she did something with that line, because Brittany did look like a war veteran's, like, wife or something. It was a lot. It was a lot. And so Heather's like, you look kind of wild. And Brittany's like, oh my god, that's so mean and condescending. Like, why would you say that? And this is what I don't like about these two women. Everything you say to them is mean and condescending. Everything's an attack. They can't take nothing ever. Like, that's just, it's so hard, and I don't know. It feels manipulative all the time to just always find the negative in everything. Like, you can't find anything. I mean, she did tell me she looked crazy, so I get that, but like, I'm just saying they twist and turn everything, which we will find out later in this episode. Oh, I don't like them. And so she's like, oh, you're condescending, Heather. Like, what did you do then? And Heather's like, well, I made the same mistake for you. I just fucked up and blew up my whole life. Which Britt doesn't really have a comeback to, because what can you say to that? But Heather then spends the rest of their scene just trying to justify Britney's behavior. Like, she's going through all like the traumatic stuff she's been through, and they're kind of showing clips that might justify why Britney is so hyper focused on men or being the way she is and being just so out of touch, it seems like. And that's all cute, but I don't care. Not buying it. You can do all the montages, the backstories you want to. It doesn't change the fact that Britney is weird ass Britney. And that Heather, you're weird as fuck too. It changes none of that. It changes absolutely none of it. So that was that. Could give a fuck. Next we move on to Bronwyn and Old Man Todd, aka her husband. And they are going to lunch. And they're in these little like igloo wood, see-through igloo things. They were kind of cute and clearly heated because they're in Utah but outside. But it was cute. I was like, okay, lunch date. Alright. So they're going to lunch and they're just kind of catching up on stuff. And Bronwyn reveals that she goes to the airport in these blow-up costumes to pick Todd up from the airport, which is whatever floats your boat, to each his own. Extra to me. And I really thought it was like for the show, but I watched some videos in my spare time, the after show, they talked about it and highlighted it. But she really does this. Her family does this. She's been doing it for years, and she just picks him up in inflatable costumes. So that's interesting. And by interesting, I mean that is not my yum per se. It's more of a yuck for me. But to each his own, like I said. But they highlight that cutesy, cutesy, cutesy. Todd is clocked in though. There has been this like wave of husbands being clocked in with housewives lately. And Old Man Todd is clocked in because he's bringing up, he brought up something about Britt and her two boyfriends, and so they're showing texts. That's because Bronwyn's talking about doing a couple's trip to celebrate her and Todd's like meeting anniversary. And he was like, oh, so is Britt coming with her two boyfriends? But I'm like, okay, Old Man Todd, you better know the details. You better know the tea and bring it up on camera. Help your wife. So that was just so funny to me because this man created the Palm Pilot. He's old, but he's with it. He's snappy. And honestly, in rewatching this episode, I'm like, that's probably where Bronwyn gets some of her snappiness from because she's with an old-ass man who does not have time for those little kid games. So she kind of probably has to be quick, witty, and tough. So that makes sense when I kind of was just thinking about it to myself. But they are just at lunch. They're going on. They talk about Bronwyn's baby daddy situation and the family, kind of how that's affecting it. And Todd does not fuck with these people. And this man is rich as fuck, and I would love to know who these other people are because they seem like wealthy, but they can't be more wealthy than Palm Pilot. So I just want Todd to like annihilate them with his richness. Because it seems like that's what he wants to do. But he's going through it, and he, like I said, he does not fuck with them. He thinks they're awful people. I think he might use another word, but the moral of the story is he thinks they're fucked up people. And he just doesn't think that there should be really anything happening there. And he also was like, because Bronwyn's going on and just talking about it, and clearly they talk about this off camera. Clearly it seems like Todd has given his full opinion and knows the full situation, but he's like, you are not about to kill me with the same story and storyline. He was like, I'm done. Like, he shut that shit down. He was like, I don't want to talk about it anymore. Because, that's right, Todd, you watch your blood pressure, you make sure your shit's good, and don't let the shit kill you. But I love that because Todd really showed his snappiness, and I just appreciate that in a person in general. But I feel like he gave me some real insight to them and their relationship. We then move on to a quick lunch scene with Lisa and one of her sisters. I feel like Lisa preps every single one of her family members for everything that they're on camera for. The sister showed up looking like her, dressed like her almost, in their little all-black, straight, black hair vibe. But Lisa says this is a sister that used to live in Utah with her, so they're particularly close, and they were super involved in each other's lives at a point, even though she no longer lives in Utah. But Lisa's using this opportunity once again to talk about her kids and talking about how her youngest son apparently is like socially and emotionally handicapped compared to her older son, and how he has no friends and nobody comes to his birthday parties. That makes her sad because what type of mom is she? Lisa's doing this whole kid storyline thing with herself and others, and y'all know if you've watched my other videos, there's a fine line between like using your kids and being real in real life and then exploiting them for a TV show. And I have my eyes on Lisa Barlow. I'm like the DCF of Bravo. Like, I'm always watching. Can't really do shit, currently. But maybe one day I'll save the children of Bravo. But I'm watching her because stop talking about your kids like that. Stop talking about their trauma like that. It's national television. You got random black men talking about her or them about them on YouTube. Like, stop. Cut it out. Protect the children. In addition to protecting the children, well, that's not even in addition. Just another side note. Lisa's also talking about her and John and how codependent they are and how protective he is because now she's justifying whatever possible bad behavior he had at the party. So this is what I'm talking about. Always playing chess, never checkers, but for a seasoned Bravo watcher, bitch, I see you. You ain't love. Next we move on to Angie, Bronwyn, and Whitney going on a walk and downloading on recent events of life and catching up on a few other things. So we open with them just really recapping how the fight went and how the ripple effects are getting to everyone. Whitney reveals that John texted Justin and they're setting up some type of meeting to go meet. Because that's what you do at a meeting, right? But they're going to go talk it out about what happened with their fight, apparently, allegedly. And that's whatever. They then move on to talk about the whole situation between Whitney and Lisa. And so obviously Angie and Whitney are like, Lisa, fuck Lisa, blah, 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 blah. Bronwyn is defending Lisa, which is odd to me. And let me tell you why. Because this is the same woman that Bronwyn came on the show as a friend of, we all know. But almost immediately, within like episodes 1 or 2, we're talking about how Lisa is like she doesn't know what's happening with their friendship. She's not sure, she never experienced this. So she has clearly been having a Lisa issue. They've had little arguments. And so all of a sudden, Bronwyn's like defending her and Whitney's trying to say like, oh, Lisa does this and this is how she fights and this is how she plays. And Bronwyn's like, I've never experienced that for myself. Like, that's hard for me to like listen to. In her confessional, she's saying she's like never questioned her friendship with Lisa, which feels like a direct lie in opposition to what she said episodes prior. So I'm confused what we're doing. And this is the shit. I've been riding for you so far, Bronwyn. Don't make me regret it. Nothing will happen, because this is you of the two. And I'm just talking my shit, but like, it's a lot of wasted breath and words. But so, just don't be stupid, please. But the fans will eat her up if she is. But I just found that very odd, because I'm like, okay, don't give Heather a point either. Please don't give Heather a point. That's like that's the worst thing you could do. That's what I'd actually be upset about, if you make Heather valid in her stupidity. Don't do that. Everything else is fine, just don't do that. Bronwyn. So, I got my eye on that. I found that to be weird. But they're going on, they're talking. She announces that they're going on a couples trip. And speaking of Heather, she's like, I don't know if I'm going to really invite Heather, which is a bold move for a rookie housewife to not invite an OG on a cast trip. I live. So, clearly, Heather's not going to go. Well, not clearly, I shouldn't say. The clearly is for Britt. Bronwyn's like, I'm not inviting Brittany. She barely got a man. She got 2 men. She's a war widow. She's not invited. She's not coming. And I love that because I don't want to see weird-ass Brittany on the trip anyway. So Bronwyn announces that, which is cool. And then Angie is like, oh, we're talking about Heather still? Tag me in. So Angie begins to kind of come for Heather. And she's talking about how Heather was being messy, as Bronwyn let her know at her party. And Angie's like, look, I've known Heather since we were 15 years old. She's always wanted to be at the cool kids table. She'll do anything to get there. And she's really just defending Lisa blindly and really supporting Lisa. And Lisa has been shitty to Heather up until about 5 minutes ago into this season. So Angie's like, what the fuck? Like, she's just so riding for her and just completely apparently doesn't fuck with me. And she's not wrong. But I just love that Angie has the history of Heather and can really describe how much of a basic, insecure woman that she is. Because that's what oozes out of her pores. And she just tries to act like this big bad bitch. And I hate a motherfucker like that. Because you don't have to be the toughest bitch in the room. You don't have to be the coolest bitch in the room. But when you are like so pressed to be that, and you are like doing all this underhanded shit to be that, that's when I can't do it. And that's what Heather like embodies to me. So, kudos to Angie. kudos to Angie for knowing the tea, spreading the tea, and putting it on national television. TTT. The next scene we move on to is Angie and Heather going over to Weird Ass Britney's for a church event. And I just want to say this at the top of this scene. Heather is, as you know, annoying. As you know, has so many complex, weird layers to her. But she is an addict of being a victim, first of all. Second of all, she just loves to put herself in situations just to have something to fucking talk about. For example, she is going to a church event and all she ever has talked about is how she's denounced herself from being a Mormon, how she has such conflicts with her religion. And like, I guess the psychology of it all, I can understand how somebody who claims not to like something or want to do something can always end up in that situation. But she is so annoying because she just acts so unaware of it all sometimes. Or it's maybe just because I really don't like her. Because I feel like at some point she did kind of cop to it. But she's just annoying. It's like the way I was thinking about it as I rewatched the episode was like, if she were a drug addict, she's insistent on going to every drug party there is. Like at no point does it feel like she's stopping herself from like being in the situation. If you're so traumatized, if you're so upset, if you're so hurt, if it's such a big thing, why keep making this such a pivotal part of your life? Like, I just don't get it. Like, if you were an alcoholic, would you just go to bars and clubs all the time? To talk about, like, how much it's, like, affected you and, like, traumatized you? Like, it just seems weird to me. But she's going to this church event. She's reminiscing about how she used to throw these Bible studies, like, a couple times a week, and how it's good to be here despite her religious trauma or... She's saying these things that are like kind of explaining and justifying it, but at the end of the day, the whole thing just doesn't feel right and seem right to me. But Angie comes, she shows up with a bottle of wine, which Britt is trying to like shade her and act all like holier than thou, but they do a beautiful montage of Brittany sucking down wine every chance she gets when they're all out together. So, yeah, she's being a hypocrite, which religion and hypocrisy, who would have thought those two would be together? The whole scene was just giving me the ick. Like, people just, I feel like, mistreat and misuse religion all the time. And it's quite literally triggering. Like, it's just... So the whole scene was giving me the yuck. I don't care if it was their yum. I was yucking. But they're doing this, they're doing that, they're singing hymns. Brittany is, like, all of a sudden a choir director. And she, if I had to know her in person, I would really think about surgically removing my ears. Like, it's bad enough to know her through a screen. I can't imagine hearing that, like, pitchy voice like, she is just fucking, she's the worst. The worst. Yeah, Britt was definitely acting like a cult leader during all of this. That's what it was giving me. And I don't do cults. I do not do cults. But Brittany goes on to give a little speech about why they're there, and I guess they haven't done this in a while, and it's in honor of her mother who passed away, which... R.I.P., all respect to that. But then she goes on to tell the origin story of her parents, and no wonder she's weird as Brittany, because her parents were fucking weird. Like I said, may her mom rest in peace, but her parents were weird. It worked for them, I'll give them that. But Brittany tells a story about how her parents dated for 6 days, got engaged, got married a month like after meeting each other, and the successful part here is that they were married for like 53 years. That's great, but also one of you or both of you were delusional liars. Because who marries somebody after 6 days? Successful or not, somebody was not telling the truth. There's no way both parties were like 100% sold in that situation, and if they were, mental illness is at play, and that's why Brittany is the way she is. Which makes me feel like this much bad about calling her weird ass Brittany, but not really. Because we don't have these facts. Those are all alleged allegations that I just spewed. So, like, no wonder she is so fucking cuckoo for Cocoa Puff. She's trying to chase down her parents' weird-ass love story. She said that shit and my eyes probably almost, like, jumped out of my skull. No, they're still here. But, no wonder, girl. But they tell that lovely story. That was really fun for the room to know and national television to know. I'm glad they decided to share. But they move on from that. Bible study and the weird overshare stop. And then we move on to a little fight and a little tension with Heather and Angie. I'm going to say this right now. Heather thinks she's a politician, and she should be a politician. She's literally standing with her arms like behind her back. She's like talking very squarely. She's very aggressive with certain people. This is the same woman that allegedly let somebody punch her in her face and lied about it. Used to get cursed out and stomped on every day of her life. Now all of a sudden she's picking fights with people that she just deems weak all of a sudden. Like I can't get down with Heather. I can't get down with her. But Angie's like pretty much like letting her know, or I think Heather started because she's mad that Bronwyn pulled a Heather on Heather. Like Bronwyn said it. Heather thought she was just going to be HBIC. She's like, oh, the real bad bitch is in jail. It's my turn. It's my time. So she thinks she's going to come over here and yell at Angie and about Bronwyn being messy and how Angie can't see it and all this stuff. And Angie's like, Heather, you are being blindly loyal to Lisa. You're not being a good friend to me. So like, Bronwyn was just telling me the truth. Whereas like, I said what I said to you and you had no reaction, and then you went and told Lisa. Which is true, and Heather keeps saying that she had a reaction and she like was saying stuff to Angie. Heather was sitting there like, when Angie said what she said about Lisa. So Heather's just a fake ass bitch, and she's clearly trying to pivot and play semantics and use just enough of the truth and blur the line just enough to justify herself. And like, I don't know. I don't know if it's I'm a psych major. I don't know if it's like I've been guilty of some of these things I can recognize. I don't know what it is, but it's so clear to me what Heather's doing. And it's really fucking just annoying that ain't nobody's like really calling her on it and just seeing it. Because to me it's so blatantly obvious. Or maybe it's just because I'm hyper-focused on not liking Heather because she just does not have an authentic vibe to her. But she's trying to like almost gaslight Angie, I feel like, and claiming that's happening to her. And Angie's not having it. She's just not having it. So Angie is staying calm. She's giving examples about how she was so loyal to Jen, and Jen treated her like shit and was wrong all the time. This might have been when Angie brought up the high school shit. I noted it to earlier, but either way, we got to equifinality. We got to the same conclusion. Heather has always been a pick-me. She's always been a choose-me type of girl. And Angie's like, bitch, I've known you since we were children. You are desperate to be liked. Like, stop playing. And I saw somebody trying to allege the same of Angie. And even if that's true, Angie owns that. I feel like Angie will be the first one to say, like, I want to be a housewife. I want to be here. I want to be included in this because I think it's amazing. And for that reason, she will always get a check from me. Heather, on the other hand, acts like she could care less, but this is her whole life, like, accomplishment. Which it is an accomplishment, don't get me wrong, but I'm sure Heather has shrines in her closet about this shit and trying to act like so nonchalant. The worst thing anybody could have done in this world, love you, Rihanna, but I'm going to blame this on you. Rihanna should have never followed this woman. She should have never followed her and sent her that DM. She's been a problem ever since. Like, she was already kind of bad. She's actually very likable, and I liked her a lot. Her first season. Rihanna sent her that message and it was over. She ain't never been the same since, and not in a good way. So Rihanna, stop the Heather love and start making music again. I don't know if that's what's happening. You stop music and all of a sudden you're complimenting Heather. But I'm not going to do too much because I like you and you're rich. So if you ever happen to catch a whiff of this, I love you. Don't yell at me. Please. So as Angie's giving her these examples and saying these things, specifically mentioning Jen, Heather claims that this is such a low blow and that's just such a low thing for Angie to do, and is trying to justify her blind loyalty. You can't do that, my love. You can't. Yeah, so Heather's claiming she has a history of blind loyalty. I just say she has a history of being a punk, essentially, and like being a liar. And that's what I think during the rewatch, that's what I really realized. Same woman who lied to get into, I won't say she lied to get into her marriage, but she lied clearly throughout her marriage because she was not happy. She was just concerned about getting into her heaven at the time. So I feel like she's just dishonest. She lied about the black eye, just the Jen Shah of it all, just the way she kind of let people cheat. So Heather is trying to justify her blind loyalty, and that's like her fault. And that's just not it. And she's trying to like shame Angie at the same time. And it's just not cool. But after reviewing my notes, this is where Angie talks about the cool girl table thing. And Heather just wants to be in the in crowd no matter what she does. And from a teenager to now, she's never gotten over that. Which is another sign and proof that childhood trauma is real. So check on your childhood traumas. Fix them. We all need to. And think about that when you're dealing with other people sometimes. Because that's the coat we all wear, whether we realize it or not. But, ooh, Heather was pissing me off. And during this whole thing, she never... Because Angie's like, okay, you're more loyal to Lisa than me, and you're literally breaking your neck to prove your loyalty to Lisa. And Heather's like, I absolutely am. And so Angie's about, like, what about me? Like, what about... You never say Lisa's wrong. You never say that she needs to go and try to maybe correct something. And what I noticed here is that Heather, like a true politician, never stated the words and never admitted or agreed to Lisa being wrong. She was just saying shit like, well, I never considered that, and I'll have to really look at the situation and think about it and take in what you're saying. That's that shit. Like, bitch, you're not low. And what I'm also realizing is that every time they cut a scene without a clear, like, I'm sorry, we'll work it out, that means those bitches didn't work it out. And that's exactly how the scene ended. Which means Heather was playing politician, never said shit, never copped anything, and they could not move forward. And you can't tell me otherwise. But I was just looking at her like, you bitch. You bitch. I'm going to quickly mention our next scene because I don't even know if this has ever really happened in Housewives history, but we have John Barlow, who cannot park his car, and we have Chipmunk Justin going out to lunch to talk about the fight that they had at a party. And so, I mean, they're very, like, much male brain oriented around this. They're like, this is why I'm mad, this is what you did. I can own my part, but this is why I responded to this way. So they worked that part out pretty easy. John clearly was trying to be more friendly than Justin was. Chipmunk Justin was trying to keep that chip on his shoulder. Ironic, Chip and Dale are the world famous chipmunks from my childhood, and Justin kind of looks like their cousin. So Justin and his Chip and Dale shoulder are just mad still. He doesn't want smashed potatoes. John's trying to order food and liquor, and he's just like, yeah, no, not really. But they kind of talk, like I said, they work the details out a little bit amongst themselves, and that seems to go fine. But John is just like, I think you owe Lisa an apology. I'd like you to apologize. And Justin literally is just like, I'll have to think about that. I don't know. And did not apologize. And so I'm sure Lisa's going to love that when John Barlow gets back to her. But that was that scene, cut and dry. Very, very telling that we didn't get Mary Cosby in this episode, but we got an only husband scene. Wasn't the best choice, in my opinion. So we end this lovely episode with Bronwyn and Heather. Bronwyn invites Heather over to her house essentially to let her know about this girls' trip, which is unbeknownst to Heather, and kind of like see where they are. We open the scene with Bronwyn kind of blowing smoke up Heather's ass. She's like, Heather's witty and funny. This, mind you, all in confessional, but she's just like, I think we're kind of similar and that's why we don't get along, or why we haven't gotten along right away. Which is an interesting take, but Bronwyn's, in my opinion, trying to be positive with a bitch like Heather. And Heather's coming in being shady, of like, I don't know why I'm here, I don't know why Bronwyn's calling me, I would assume it's to apologize. I just want to know who the fuck Heather thinks she is. You're the same bitch that got punched in the face and wouldn't say shit about who did it. That's you, bitch. Who are you? And yes, people change, but you ain't changed that much. Trust me, you ain't changed that much. So Heather's already getting on my fucking nerves. But she gets a point in this fight and in this scene because Bronwyn's like showing her around her house, which they're remodeling. Now, mind you, Bronwyn has 6 dogs, which Heather over-exaggerated and said, don't you have like 8 dogs? Which is not a big deal, but that was her version of Utah shade. But Bronwyn is showing her around her house, and there are just piles of dog shit in places. Baby, you are married to the man who invented the Palm Pilot. Clean up the shit. Why are you giving Heather ammunition? You get minus 50 points in my book. Minus 50. Don't give a basic bitch ammunition ever. So Bronwyn, I'm disappointed in you. You let Heather come into your house and call it the Puppy Palace, and said she was worried about talking to you and keeping eye contact because you need to watch the floor to step in shit. No. No. That's not good. I don't like that. And that's nasty as fuck. Amongst other things. It's okay, because Bronwyn got a couple licks back by the end of the episode. She brings Heather back down out of the puppy palace shit room. And they go sit down, and Bronwyn's like, hey, like, I just want to, like, talk about some stuff. Like, I understand that, like, what I've been doing might be perceived as messy and how you might think that's messy. She's really, to me, she's owning her dog shit. She really is. And Heather this is why I don't like this fucking woman. This is why I don't like this woman. I'm going to say it every video. This is why I don't like this woman. She just wants to be the victim so bad. She's like taking the words that are literally coming out of her mouth and translating them into her own fucked up perception of herself and then spitting them back. So she's just like saying words that Bronwyn's like not saying. She's like, like, Bronwyn's like, okay, I'm messy, I essentially pulled a you and you don't like that. And Heather's like, what do you mean? Like, you clearly don't like me, da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da. I hate a bitch like that. I swear to God. I literally, my last note about this episode is Heather's a bitch and Bronwyn's trying to apologize. She's just going on and on and on. And so Bronwyn's like, okay, you want to argue about stupid shit, you don't want to agree to disagree or hear where I'm coming from. I invited you here because we're going on a trip and I want to be in a good place with you, and it's a couples trip. And Heather's like, you invited here to make me audition to go on your vacation and I feel sick to my stomach and I'm leaving. And as she's leaving, she's like, I'm glad you have so many more friends and you're so witty and you're so funny, Bronwyn. And once again, I don't like a bitch like that because you're insecure. You don't know what the fuck you got going on. And all of a sudden it's about how funny and how many friends she, like, nobody said any of that. You're putting words in her mouth. You're not saying what she's saying. And Heather did accuse Bronwyn of doing the same thing. But, and if she did, she didn't do it so fucking, like, egregiously and so, like, crazy. But Heather storms out, arguing with Bronwyn. Bronwyn was, like, giving her lashings the whole time, though. Bronwyn was like, you thought you were going to come to my house, I was just going to apologize to you, and you were going to own nothing? She's like, did you really think that was going to happen today? And so Heather could not take the fact that somebody can keep up with her words. Because Heather's a politician. She pivots. She uses semantics, like I've said in this video and earlier videos. And Bronwyn is sharp and uses the same, I think they fight similarly, which is what I was referencing before as well. So she was not letting Heather have that moment, and Heather didn't get away with it. So Heather got up and ran out of her house, essentially. And Bronwyn told her on the way out, maybe you need some more self-awareness. That is how you first season housewife. That is how you come for a dumb bitch. And that is how you do this whole thing. So Bronwyn gets claps from me. The trailer for next episode looked amazing. If you watch the after show, make sure you peep that because that was good and that was telling. But I, once again, full plate 8 this episode. And I am so in love with this franchise. They produce good shit. But that was it for episode 7, season 5 of our Girls in the Salt Lake City. Yeah, please come back for more, comment, like, subscribe, and I'll catch you for something soon, very, very quickly.